Good morning, everybody. Our chair is not with us this morning. He was not feeling well and is not going to be able to make it. So I will call the meeting to order at 10:01. And the first order of business after I call roll will be to elect a chair pro tem for today's meeting. So if you want to just. I'm sorry, what was that?
The vice chair is the chairman of the group.
Of the group.
Right. Ben is
city.
So whoever's the chairman of the city group is the vice chair.
And I think that's Mr. O'Brien, but I don't think he's here. So once I take roll, then I'll open the floor for anyone who's interested to. So I'll start with roll. Mr. Cunha, Mr. Clark, Ms. Zimmerman, Miss Brown, Mr. Harrell, Ms. Lopes, Mr. Hofdahl.
Here.
Mr. Savage.
Here.
Mr. Rios.
Here.
Ms. Austin Tibbetts. Mr. Sanders.
Here.
Ms. Deming. Ms. Nebeker. Mr. DeHart. Ms. Holmes. Here. Mr. Leba.
Here.
Ms. Agers.
Here.
Mr. Tristo. Ms. Fast. Mr. Robertson. Mr. Cryer.
Here.
I'm not sure if it came on.
Ms. Matthews.
Here.
Mr. Troost. Here. Mr. Delgadillo. I think I see him. Sorry, I couldn't hear you, but I could see you, Mr. Good morning. Mr. Cantu, Ms. Nguyen, Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Smith, Mr. Medeiros.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum. At this time, the floor is open for anyone who would like to show interest in serving as chair pro tem for this meeting.
My suggestion would be our past chair, Mr. Cunha, serve.
I agree with that one. This is Les Clark. I'm also here.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Clark. Okay, so I will take public. Is there anyone else interested in?
Well, it's a point of order. This is Ned Leba. Don't we have to have someone from the government serve as the chair?
I am not certain on that. Let me check. Hold on one second.
Trying to make it easy.
Nothing is easy.
What's government got to do with it? It's our committee. What are you thinking, Ned?
The rules that the chair rotates amongst the various interest groups so that we have government as the chair and the vice chair. So it would seem that there should be a government candidate who would serve as pro tem. But, you know, I guess we can be flexible, but I certainly would like to abide by the rules.
Who do you suggest then so we can keep the meeting moving?
Ned,
this is Ned. No one from the government is willing to raise their hand and serve. I think there was a rival for Mr. Cantu before from the north or from the south.
Just for let's keep this going. Mr. Medeiros, you volunteered graciously. So why don't I select Mr. Medeiros to be the acting chair of this meeting so we could keep it moving forward because of my dissertations take a lot of time. So Mr. Medeiros, I would elect you. And if there's a second.
Second.
Okay, thank you. I do have to call for public comment since we'll have to vote on that. Are there any public comments in Bakersfield on that motion?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Any public comment in Modesto on that?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment on that motion? Okay, seeing none and none online, I will call for roll to elect Mr. Medeiros as the chair pro tem for today's meeting. Mr. Cunha? Yes. Mr. Clark? Mr. Clark?
Yes, I vote for him.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Hofdahl? Mr. Hofdahl? Is that a yes? You can now.
No. Oh, go speak now.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Savage?
Yes.
Mr. Rios?
Yes.
Ms. Austin Tibbetts?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Ms. Deming? Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Liba?
Yes.
Ms. Agers?
Yes.
Mr. Tristow? Mr. Cryer?
Yes.
Ms. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Troost? Mr. Delgadillo?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Medeiros?
I guess so.
Okay, through the chair, Mr. Medeiros will serve as the pro tem chair for this meeting.
Very good. Let's call this meeting to order. You need to, you've taken. I figured I could. Do you, you've taken roll?
So you can go to number 4. Oh, I'm sorry, no, number.
We'll proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll ask Mr. Cunha to lead us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there any corrections that are noted as it relates to item number 4, the minutes from the August 6, 2024 meeting? Hearing none, do we have to take roll on the,
No roll on the
on the
public
minutes?
comment. I do have to take public comments on the minutes.
okay, let's take public comments then on the minutes.
Are there any public comments on the August minutes in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Any public comments in Modesto?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment on the minutes? Seeing none and none online.
Very good. The minutes are deemed approved as a result of no corrections or public comments in relation thereto. We'll now move to item 5, the public comments. The time is, this time is made available for comments from the public on matters that are not on the agenda. It is requested that no comments be made during this period on items on the agenda. The public may make comments on each CAC agenda item during the time allowed for public comments. Attention is called to the fact that the CAC is prohibited by law from taking any action on discussion of matters that are not on the agenda. Let's call for public comments at this time.
Thank you. Are there any public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Any public comments in Modesto?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment? Seeing none and none online.
This time we'll move on to item 6, and I'm the interim chair and I have no comments, so we'll move on to item 7, the executive director's report.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Ryan Hayashi, one of the Deputy Air Pollution Control Officers here with the district, and I just have a couple comments for you. The district is a happy recipient. As of last week, the Association for Air Pollution Control Agencies, it's a national organization composed of air agencies. We submitted an application for best practice, and it was awarded, deemed one of the best in the country, and it's for our comprehensive wildfire prevention and smoke impact response program. And it's a comprehensive program. It includes coordination with land management agencies, where we developed a process using the state's online portal to incorporate our requirements, and it's really streamlined that process and made it easier for residents to obtain their hazard reduction permit, so they can do those things in accordance with both state law and our requirements. And so it's definitely a big benefit. It also included an outreach and education component, and then the district's clean air rooms and clean air centers programs, where we provide both residential air filtration devices to people, in addition to providing larger scale units to more public facing buildings where people can go during wildfire smoke impacts. So very pleased that we received that award last week. In addition to that, the district governing board study session has been scheduled. It's going to be held on November 13th and 14th. It's going to be held at the Visalia Convention Center, which is located attached to the Visalia Marriott, where there's accommodations there. The agenda has yet to be set. That's usually done during the September board meeting, and so we will have more information as that becomes available. And those are my comments, and happy to take any questions if anybody has any.
Is there any comments? Do you want to ask if there's any comments from public or the north, south, or here in Fresno?
Okay.
Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan, thank you very much. Everybody had a good 3-day weekend, and everybody was safe. With this best practice, do we get a check? Do we get some pesos, some money, some gold year, you know?
What the organization is really about is information sharing. And so what we do get the opportunity to do is help inform other people that may be looking to do something similar, and be able to provide our expertise and knowledge in those areas.
Excellent. And could you send a copy of that to our state legislators, our valley legislators?
The award, a copy of the award itself?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Send it to all of our valley legislators, especially the ones in Fresno area. Appreciate it. Again, congratulations to you, to Samir and the entire board and the staff.
Yeah.
I think the wildfire issue and the clean centers, I've heard a lot of positive things about the clean centers. And that's great news to hear that from even the farmers that hear from some of the people in the rural communities. So again, congratulations. I wish we would have had a nice $1 million check or something, you know, but that's okay. We'll take the educational award and flaunt that around the valley and the state legislature, maybe even to the governor. Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any member comments or questions from the north?
No comments in the north.
Thank you. In Bakersfield, do you have any member comments or questions for Ryan?
Very good. We'll move on, and there are no further comments here in Fresno. So we'll move on to the CARB report. Laura Carr, item number 8.
Should be coming up on Zoom right now.
We'll skip 8, move on to item 9. We'll come back to 8 as soon as she's on. Update on attainment plans and rules, Emily Nealon.
Oh.
See, I caught you off guard, didn't I?
You did. Thank you.
We're going to keep this baby moving.
Keep me on my toes on a Tuesday back from a holiday.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Emily Nealon. I'm the Director of Air Quality Planning. Couple of brief updates for you guys this morning, following up on a couple items we discussed at this last meeting. The first of which is related to the 1-year extension request that we had submitted for the 1997 annual PM 2.5 standard. Just a recap for that, back in May, the district and CARB submitted a request to EPA to extend our attainment date for this standard from December of 2023 to December of 2024. At this last meeting, we discussed that EPA had proposed approval of that request, and the CAC requested that we submit a letter on their behalf. I wanted to let you know that we did submit that to the docket. So just a quick update on that. And then my second update is related to the 2024 plan for the 2012 annual PM 2.5 standard. Again, we talked about this at the last meeting. The most recent update is it was adopted at the CARB Governing Board hearing, and it was transmitted to EPA just this last week. The main thing that I wanted to note was that Katrina just sent out a copy of the adopted resolution from the CARB hearing to both the CAC and the EJAG. And this was based on a discussion that happened at the EJAG meeting. Manuel specifically requested that that resolution also be shared with the CAC. There was quite a lot of discussion at the public hearing. It was about 5 hours long with a lot of public comment. And so based on the discussion that happened at the CARB hearing, some language was added to the resolution that was sent out this morning related to the very first to last, be it further resolved statement within the resolution. And it specifically added language to implement identified measures as soon as possible for any feasible measures that were identified to assist with attaining the 9 microgram standard. So with that, that concludes my updates. Pretty brief this morning, but happy to take any questions that you have.
Do we public comment or do, okay, is there any questions from anyone in the north, in Modesto?
No questions in the north.
In the south, in Bakersfield? Hearing none, any here in Fresno? Yes, Mr. Cunha.
Yeah, just for clarity, Emily, at the EJAG last week, we had somewhat made a request that CARB sent the 2.5, the 2018-2023 plan. CARB approved on the 25th of July. It went then last week to Region 9 to be evaluated. And they have to go through the Supreme Court this time to get approved. But so in ARB submittal, there was a lot of whereases. There was a lot of confusion at the end, I think even by board and even on the direction of the staff, what they were supposed to do, Dr. Cliff. Will we be able to see a document that shows what those final whereases were added? Because I don't think, as far as the CAC or even the EJ, we have any idea what was done at the very end.
Yeah, so we did send out just this morning, Katrina shared a copy of the final resolution. I'd be happy to give you a call separate to highlight the exact language that was added. It was quite minimal. Based on the discussion at the hearing, there was actually only one statement that Leanne Randolph, the chair for the CARB Governing Board, actually requested be included. All of the other discussion that was had, I think CARB is keeping as an action item list on the side. As far as what was actually added to the resolution, again, I can give you a call if you'd like to talk about it further. But for the 9 microgram standard, it's the first to last, whereas further resolved statement. And specifically, the language was already within the resolution talking about identifying further controls within the coming years for the 9 microgram standard, not for the 2012 standard. And language was added that those identified measures be pursued as soon as possible. So it was quite minimal as far as what the changes were, but we did send a copy of that out this morning.
Can we get a copy of the before and the after?
Yeah, or I'd also just be happy to highlight the language that was added and send that.
No, I'd like to see both. I'm looking, this says it's the 20, there's the 2012 and the 2018. The 2018 is not on the list that we got today here in this meeting. So I'd kind of like to see both.
Yeah, I'd be happy to send that out. As far as the resolution itself.
Go ahead.
That action included two different actions. One was approving our 2024 PM 2.5 plan. The other was CARB taking SIP credit for some reductions from agricultural incentives. So that was kind of a separate piece, but the resolution specifically, at the very end, some changes were added for the 2012 PM 2.5 standard. But yes, I'd be happy to send that.
Yeah, I'd like all pieces.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds great.
Thank you very much, Emily. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. That completes item 9. Thank you very much. We'll go back to item 8, the verbal report from CARB. Laura Carr, I believe, is giving that report. Laura?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Yeah, my apologies. I was on and ready to go, but there's always an unavoidable lag as I get promoted to a panelist on Zoom. So apologies for that. I don't have an update today. The CARB board did not hold a hearing in the month of August. So there are no board items that the board recently considered for me to report on today. So just a quick update. Thank you.
Are there any questions from anyone? Here, we'll start in Fresno.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Laura, thank you. Good morning. In August 23rd was the ARB workshop on the dairy report, and they went on a tour the day before, and then they had a hearing on the 23rd of that Thursday, I believe it was the 23rd, where it started, I think, at 9 a.m. or 10, and it went to 6 o'clock, because I remember at 5:23 from this room, I had to run to the EJAG. It was a long walk. But the only thing is, when I left, I figured I had to jump the gates at 8 o'clock at night because the gates close. And if your vehicle's parked across the street, you're in serious trouble. So, but anyway, is there going to be, or did ARB classify that meeting as a workshop by book? Because there are board members present, and it was the only item on the agenda. And that CDFA secretary spoke and Randolph chair spoke. Is that going to be registered as a dairy report committee? And because I know that the staff at the end had a bunch of stuff and a bunch of questions they were asking. Is that report going to be available to the CAC and to the other groups of what took place? Or are you not registering that as a board meeting for August? That's my question. I don't know what to say, because some people told me it was a board meeting. Some people told me it was a dairy workshop, but yet board members came and it was a great, a pretty lengthy discussion about cows. I do know the cows had a sign. I went by a dairy and the cows had a sign up that says, "When does it stop?" You know, when does this stuff stop on the poor cows? I think the cows are getting tired and they may need some psychological help, because they're going through quite a bit of stress. So, but that's my question. Is it a valid meeting, or was it a report that did with carbon and they're going to release or do something? I notice I see Michael on there, and maybe Michael might have some insight. So thank you, Laura.
Yes, good morning. This is Michael Benjamin, Chief of the Air Quality and Planning and Science Division at CARB. It was not a CARB board meeting. It was a public workshop. There was not a quorum of the board members, and it was the board members in attendance were there to be able to hear and to understand the concerns raised by all of the meeting participants, but it was not a CARB board meeting.
Super. Then the next question is, Michael, will we at the CAC be able to see what some of the outcomes are from that, or how is it going to work? Being it was a public workshop, and that process went through, or is it going to be? It's going to take a couple of months to get stuff together and ideas, and then they'll publish something about what they're going to be looking at and what they're going to do with these four-legged critters.
I will follow up. The workshop was being held by a couple of other divisions at CARB, even though I was participating. So I will check with my colleagues and then I will circle back and we will convey that information back as soon as possible to the CAC through the board clerk, through Katrina. So we'll let you know as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there, before we leave this item, are there any questions from the North? Modesto?
I have a question. I'm not sure if this is the time to ask, but I had somebody reach out to me asking to see, and I don't know if CARB has heard anything, if there's going to be any pushback on the advanced clean fleets with the two major fires that we've recently had with the vehicle fires with the batteries. I believe there were some legislators that were supposed to be sending a letter to Mr. Newsom, and I don't know if this would be the time to ask that question, if there's been any talks about that.
This is Michael Benjamin again at CARB. So we are aware of these types of issues that are occurring with some of the electric vehicles. I'm not aware that it's going to impact our implementation plans for these rules because we need the emission reductions, and I'm not aware that these issues are widespread, but I will go back and talk with my colleagues and we will let you know if there's any indication that these fires are going to delay the rule, but I don't believe that it will.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else in the North who wishes to ask a question or has any comments?
No further questions.
Okay, we'll move to the South in Bakersfield. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I did fail to ask if there was anyone else here in Fresno other than Mr. Cunha who had any questions or comments. Seeing none, thank you very much for making an attempt to make a presentation, even though there wasn't a meeting this last month. We appreciate Mr. Benjamin and Laura, your attendance. Okay, at this point, we'll go on to item number 10, healthy air living and back to school outreach.
Good morning. My name is Jamie Holt, and I'm the Chief Communications Officer at the Valley Air District. It's that time of year when we complete quite a bit of significant back to school outreach, and I'm going to go through a little bit of that right now. As you know, and as we brought up at the last meeting, it is wildfire season, although that season gets longer and longer every year. That, coupled with a traditional uptick in ozone due to increased traffic with back to school, has led us to do some additional outreach, a little bit more than we normally do. We have a program called our Healthier Living Schools program, and its goal is really to engage students of all ages. We don't mandate, but request that students modify outdoor activities to protect health when we do have these episodes of poor air quality. And in recent years, it's really been when we have the smoke come down from the wildfires and hit the valley floor. Sometimes it's also up in our Foothill Mountain communities. We request really that schools keep kids inside. This whole program came about because years ago, we had coaches and principals that were saying to us, you're giving us an air quality forecast for the entire day. You're going to tell us that it's going to be unhealthy for sensitive groups, the orange category, or unhealthy for everyone, the red category. But we know for a fact that it's not going to be red all day long or orange all day long. And we want to be able to get our kids out for maybe a morning football practice or maybe an evening game, maybe a morning PE or recess. We want a better understanding of what exactly is happening with air quality. The program came along, Healthier Living Schools. It replaced our air quality school flag program. If you've been around long enough, you remember that, to give students, parents, teachers, administrators, and coaches air quality information on an hourly basis, often right to their phone. We really work with that entire school community. You throw in the health community there, the nurses as well. And we really want them to understand both the challenges that we face and then also the progress that we've made. I will tell you, when I started doing this 20 years ago, we had a lot more days when we did not let kids out to play than we do now. And that's just a testament to the hard work that's been done. We also work hard to make sure that parents and families get connected through a variety of programs. Oftentimes, we might have buy-in from one end of the spectrum. That is, we might have buy-in from the school district or the school, but the parents aren't educated. Or the reverse of that. We might have buy-in from the parents and the students, but we need to do a little bit more to get the administrators, the district level staff involved. We really see students as air quality ambassadors, both of the challenges that we still have and all the good work that's been done. And then kind of the last part of this is a no idling or an idle-free campaign that we do. We provide signage for schools, really encouraging folks, especially during that morning drop-off or on those days when it's not 110 degrees outside, to turn off their vehicle and not idle, especially if they have one of those older vehicles, which has some of those tailpipe emissions that we've spoken of before. This is just a little bit of our materials. I'll tell you right there, those are the air quality levels. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they do correspond to the AQI or our air now levels. And you can see behind that our real-time outdoor activity risk or ROAR guidelines. And we really give specific instructions based on how long kids might be outside, taking into account that children, if they are running around outside, they're going to be breathing in air much more quickly than they would if they were just sitting down outside or if they were inside. So we take all of those things into account when we're looking at our real-time outdoor activity risk guidelines. We've really evolved this program over the last about 20 years. And it now is an award-winning program. We've won an award on a national level, and it's really a best practice when it comes to working with schools. I sit on several groups that are national kind of working groups to talk about air quality and education at the school sites. This has become a much bigger deal in recent years, directly tied to wildfires in some of the areas of the country that maybe normally don't have air pollution issues. They now are looking at air pollution issues. So we are in just about every school in the San Joaquin Valley. We have over 1,000 schools that have signed up to be our partners through this program. And we really work hard to make sure, and it is a day in, day out, hands-on activity, that we understand that every single school is different. Their demographics are different, their resources, their size, their location. Are they a rural or urban school? Are they a school that is its own district? That is, it's just one school and they have a school board and we just have a handful of people we need to get on board? Or are they a large school district like a Stockton Unified or a Clovis or a Fresno or a Bakersfield? And then what have they done in the past? So we track all of that. We have a program that our IT department developed for us that allows us to kind of track on a regular basis who we're talking to and all of these basic pieces of information that help us better really run our programs for their needs. We really look at, like I said, researching, analyzing, ongoing communication, both phone calls, emails. We're out at school sites, we're at PTA meetings. We try to be flexible. We don't necessarily tell a school that they have to do something a certain way. We go into a school and say, this is our recommendation, and we want you to do whatever's going to work best for you that keeps the kids safe while at the same time understands that your needs may be a little different. And then, of course, we reinforce the program on a monthly basis. And that's really one of the big pushes that we're out right now. My team just left this morning to go out and work with the school. We are physically visiting schools across the 8 counties of the San Joaquin. I have a team that goes out just about every morning during the August-September timeframe. Every morning that school is in session, we're either there during drop-off or pickup. We, of course, get the school's permission, and we distribute packets that contain air quality information, wildfire information, information about our grant programs. We're also out, as I mentioned, at back to school nights, coffee hours, PTA meetings. Something we're doing new with this round of outreach is we actually have a flyer that has a QR code on it. Everyone now, COVID got us all used to using a QR code. So it's a really quick 2-minute survey. We ask folks to go in and tell us, are they accessing air quality information? Where are they getting that information? And what are they doing based on that information? We also right now are pushing our kids calendar contest. Every year we print and distribute over 20,000 kids calendars throughout the San Joaquin Valley. They're free. We're really prioritizing getting them back into schools, libraries, senior centers, community spaces, anywhere that's open to the public. We would be happy to share them with you all, to have you all help distribute them. It is a bilingual full color wall calendar. We select 14 pieces of art from students up and down the valley, from little kids. Sometimes it's kind of funny looking art. And I'll be honest with those kindergartners, we think some teachers actually maybe help with some of the text. That's a-okay. And then up through some really just beautiful art. It's on the walls in our buildings as well. If you're, as you're headed out, if you look on the walls, you might see some of them. Recently, our board even prioritized giving these kids a quote unquote scholarship. That is 13 of the kids who are finalists will get a $100 scholarship. And then the student who is chosen for the cover gets a $500 scholarship. I will tell you, that's gotten our entries way up. So we're very excited about that. Basically, it's a check that we encourage parents to let the kids use on something school related. So what's next? We're always looking to increase our school participation. I will tell you, we say this around here a lot. The low-hanging fruit has been picked. The mid-range fruit has been picked. The high fruit has been picked. Now, when it comes to our school program, it's just that stuff way up there in the tippy top. We have a handful of schools that we still struggle to get on board. So we're doing everything we can to get those schools on board. We're communicating not only with schools through our in-person events, but we use tools such as Peach Jar. You might be familiar with that. That's an online tool that sends via email flyers to parents, and that's a service that we pay for, and it allows us to get to maybe some of those schools that we can't go to in person. We also have a really good relationship with our nonprofit partners, our community air program ambassadors. They're also working with our schools to get some of this information into our schools as well. We can't be at the over 1,000 schools in the Valley every year. We do try and rotate so that we're going to different schools every year. But working with our nonprofit partners has allowed us to reach even more schools than we have in the past. And then we're calling them. That's probably the best and easiest ways for us to have that contact. Who is our main contact at the school? Let's make sure that they're getting a phone call from us at least twice a year at the beginning of the school year, beginning at the first semester, beginning at the second semester. And then we're sending an email that's not a flyer, it's not a big mass email, but a more personal email to those contacts once a month. Talking about everything from wildfires, air quality awareness, snow idling, to, hey, we have a grant program that could help your school with its landscape equipment. Hey, we have a grant program that could help put electric school buses on the roads. So really, we are trying to make sure that we are as flexible as we can be, that we understand the school needs, that we are really tuned in to the ever-changing staff at schools. We have a lot of staff turnover at schools, so we need to be plugged into that. And then making sure that students understand the reality of the air quality situation here in the Valley, and that's one of improvement, but continued challenges. I am happy to answer any questions that you may have on this program. Look for our staff in their little orange vests and their little navy t-shirts out at your local schools, probably through about the next month.
Okay, I'll start here in Fresno. My name drop. I think everybody knows who I am at this point. Air quality is primarily what the recommendations are to the schools. And that's what your recommendation encompasses. Does it also encompass extreme heat? I mean, it would seem like that's a factor in what we're dealing with when it's 105, 110, and I drive by it at 3 in the afternoon and I see football squads out there practicing. It bothers me.
We don't specifically talk about heat. But when we developed those ROAR guidelines, those real-time outdoor activity risk guidelines, we aligned them with what's called the CIF, the California Interscholastic Federation's guidelines on heat advisories. So our guidelines basically line up with what they've recommended for schools. And basically, not always, but often, you're exactly right. When we do have those triple-digit temperatures, we are seeing poor air quality, and they line up in such a way that you'll see that in some instances, we're not immediately saying you have to bring everyone inside. It's slow down, maybe stop the high cardiovascular activity for the day, more breaks, make sure people are staying hydrated. And then as air quality deteriorates and as heat index rises even further, those recommendations get a little bit stricter, with the recommendations at the far end being that point, yeah, you need everyone to be inside.
So you are coordinating with CIF then?
We sure are. And these guidelines, actually, our guidelines were even used as the model for the California Department of Education to send out to schools statewide on how to deal with poor air quality. It really came out of the 2019 wildfire. Remember, that was the Paradise Fire, and that was just one of the worst years I've ever experienced. There was a lot of questions and needs at that point to have something a little bit simpler. And those real-time outdoor advisory guidelines that we put together served as a model for what the state then turned over to all school districts throughout the state.
Good. And a last question, I'm going to ask you to speculate. Why aren't some schools participating? Why you talked about everybody up the tree, so to speak.
We do probably have about a dozen schools that still love the flag program. So, and I think as a flag-loving American myself, I think people just love the idea of flags. We do have a few schools that just, for whatever reason, well, I think a few schools that are struggling on a whole variety of issues, and trying to get the school district or the schools where they need to be academically is a real challenge for them. And this is just a handful. This is maybe, again, a dozen in our 8 counties. In those schools, I think, just don't have the bandwidth to take on doing something with regard to air quality when they're just struggling to keep kids in the classroom and get scores to not be the lowest in the state. You know, those are the schools that we really struggle with because they are just so overwhelmed with kids in classrooms right now.
Not the bigger schools generally, it's the smaller country schools, that type of thing?
Sometimes it is some of our bigger schools, bigger school districts that struggle. Fortunately, because there is so much traction to get those bigger schools kind of on board and up and running and where they need to be, we are seeing progress in that area. So it's usually the country schools like the flags, because they usually have a flagpole and everyone that is in a 20-mile radius likes to drive by. And then we just have a couple little pockets in the valley where the schools themselves are really struggling in just getting kind of to sit down and be in a room with them has sometimes been a struggle, just because they have so many other things going on that they need to address before they get to air quality.
Thank you. Anyone else in Fresno have any comments or questions?
Sure. Jamie, over the years, your program has developed such that now I get comments from relatives who still have children in school. They're all aware of this. Done a very good job. So kudos.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jamie, very good. Same as Dennis and even with Chairman. Question for you on these schools that don't have.
Wait a minute, Dennis and even the chairman? You act like you're surprised that the chairman.
Okay, the chair is
go ahead, man.
Well established. The question I have, and maybe this is something, financially they're stressed out on how to deal with education and learning disabilities and all the other things. Has it been an idea that we can apply for a grant through EPA? It seems to be, the state's broke, so I wouldn't even ask the state, but maybe they might have some money laying around. Would it be possible for these school district areas that have these issues to apply for a grant to have somebody come in there and help them with the air stuff? So that means, per se, they don't have to have staff because they're trying to teach or trying to deal with just a variety of issues. And I know what you're saying. Would that be possible to where they could apply through a grant through the air district to have someone go there and help them that is being paid through this grant, but the money strictly goes for getting a human being, not a robot? Forget that noise, chunk that in the you know what, but an actual person go there for maybe a month, or maybe the grant comes you in the fall and the grant comes in the spring, let's just say, whenever it is necessary. But we would have somebody go there to help them, because to put a full-time person or put somebody, you've got all these other issues with teachers and janitors and administration and cooks and everything. So that might be something that we may go outside of the box and allow these, maybe for a $2,500, $5,000 grant for an individual, okay, to go there and absolutely help do some of the paperwork and go to the classrooms and do those things to where it's not disrupting the normal teacher's obligation or counselors, because they're just as important as Fresno Unified or Clovis or Modesto or Bakersfield. But there's money laying around that we toss around, and we give it to electric buses, which I have a different philosophy about, or the choo-choo train. But I think there's schools that can aid in that help. And I think we need to just go outside of the box. The phone calls and trying to reach all 1,000 schools is a heck of a challenge. And you guys have done a tremendous job from 1994, 95, when you first started, and the ribbons, the flags. And so you've done a tremendous job. So that's my comment, Mr. Chairman. And maybe there's some.
I think there was a question in there too.
Yeah.
Are there grants?
Yeah. So through the chair, I think there are potentially opportunities, and there's a lot of federal funding available for a whole host of things, and so sometimes it's just finding ways to connect the two parties. And there's agencies out there that actually help people submit those applications, so we can look to see what's available and see if we can make those connections with some of them. The other point I'd like to, Jamie is very humble in her approach. The fact that we have thousands of schools and we're down to these last 12, and every year like that number has been going down and down. So I have the utmost faith that she and her team will be successful in getting those remaining ones in. And but yeah, we could definitely look and see what's available.
And what you could, instead of publicly stating who those 12 schools are, I mean, we are an advisory committee, and we represent certain areas. I mean, if I have a school in Tulare County, I'd like to know it, so I could reach out to that school, and maybe that could be done for each one of us in our jurisdictional area. If one of these 12 schools are in that area, then let us know so we can take steps in that regard.
And as far as through the chair, the idea about having a person, I will tell you one of the school districts, and I'm only going to do a call out because of how things have changed. One of the school districts that we were struggling with was actually Stockton Unified, which is a rather large school district. And in the last probably year and a half, they've made some changes up there, and they hired someone who I think there was potentially some grant money for this individual to take on a variety of things, including air quality. And it's been a little bit of a fire hose of, can you guys come up here today? Can you be here tomorrow? We want to do this program. We want you to be involved. We want you to. So it really is about, I think, there being a decision at the highest levels that we're going to prioritize this. And then if you can find just one or two kind of water barriers or key people to kind of take it on, that's huge. So that's a school district where we
now are doing all sorts of stuff with them. It has helped that they've been an AB 617 community because that has given us a lot of entry into having these kind of bigger discussions with them. But to your point, I think if you just have one or two people that can either be on the school's payroll or can be, you know, a member of the community really asking for it, I think that's a huge win. And we'll get a list of what those handful of schools that we haven't quite got where we want them to be.
Thank you. Now that Stockton's been mentioned, I'll go to the north. Is there any questions or comments that
for all their great work over the last year and a half?
Yeah, that part emphasized under the circumstances. Anybody from Modesto that in the north?
Yes, I have a couple of questions concerning the calendar program. I found it to be a very interesting and very educational, especially for the young people. So as soon as I saw the ones for 2024, I got a few and passed a few around. And as soon as I received as soon as all of us received the newsletter concerning the 2025, I forwarded that one to our mayor in Merced, and I asked him to forward that to the superintendent of Merced County Public Schools. And he replied back to me, Jose, I did it. My question is, what about the private schools? Who notifies the private school, not only on the calendar, but also on the health they're living?
We do. So I should have said, we do not differentiate public versus private school when we're doing our program. That's actually something that one of the CAC members here in the central region really got us to step our game up maybe, oh goodness, 10 years ago. And Mr. Cunha really made sure
it was Mr. Cunha. That's surprising.
I know. That we reached out to really all the schools. So public, private, continuation. We don't reach out to adult schools. Adult schools and universities and colleges, we treat a little bit differently. They're kind of in a different arm of outreach than it's kind of K through 12, but we are reaching out to them. They are on our list of schools. I will tell you, we have to keep really careful with those too, because there's a lot of, I just call them homeschools or homeschool communities that are very active in our program, but they may not be as obvious a choice or as obvious a school, because it might be a group of, you know, maybe 12 different families, and they consider themselves to be a homeschool community, and they may only get together once or twice a month for some type of outing or some type of educational endeavor. But we actually see quite a few entries from our homeschool community. I think the freedom that they have to kind of run the curriculum a little bit differently allows them to do some of this stuff, I think, a little bit easier than maybe our public schools do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anyone else from the north? Seeing none, is there anyone in Bakersfield in the south that wishes to ask a question or make a comment?
Yeah, through the chair, this is Les Clark. You know,
yes, Mr. Clark.
As far as notification of schools, the best way to do that is to actually approach the school board itself and make a presentation if you're having concerns with the communication within the school district. So that would be my suggestion. The other thing that I'd ask on this goal and objectives of health, you know, that you presented in your slide, Jamie, says deliver air quality information to parents, teachers, and students. How do you deliver that to students? How's that work?
We use a variety of methods to get air quality information to students. The one that's going on probably right now as we speak is when my team is actually physically out at a school, talking with parents and students at the same time as they're during drop off and pickup. We will do a presentation for any grade at any level. I invite some of my colleagues that are maybe still here in the back to sometimes do presentations if it's kind of
8th or higher. We have lots of interactive activities for the younger kids as well. Simple things like matching games or fun little, we have what we call our Healthy Air Heroes. They're little characters that kind of take kids through really basics of air quality. What is air quality? Why do we care about air quality? That type of thing. And we have little activity booklets in both English and Spanish for the little kids. And then we use social media and some of those social media tools to reach out to kids as well.
You know, the other thing that you mentioned, you know, make calls. You know, right now we're wrestling with the thought of taking away all cell phones at schools. I don't think that that's what you meant, that type of communication, is it? Because the state's even asking us as school board members to adopt regulations that will take away all the phones. So the communication through that process is not going to work. You know, and then I'll sign off with this. Being a school board member for several years, you know, whether it's a high school, that'd be 9 through 12, or grammar school, K through 8. Biggest complaint we get as board members is not being able to go out and play recess. That's from the kids. The kids, and also not necessarily the coaches, but some of the athletes too. They also have concerns with it. So if you're trying to educate a child, especially K through 4, they're more interested in recess than that. So that's an uphill battle for school board members. Thank you.
You are correct. And on both counts, when I mention phone calls, those are phone calls usually to the school nurse, a school staff person, administrator, or principal. That's on the administrative side, just to continue that relationship so that the school knows that we're a resource and we're there, and that those are where the phone calls are going. You didn't say it, but I think the biggest thing is if we tell folks that high school football game can't happen, and we don't do that very often because usually by the time, you know, by about 6 o'clock during the biggest part of the football season, air quality is usually getting a little bit better. But you're absolutely right. Parents and kids want to be outside. They want to be running around. That's really what this program is all about. How can we give schools the most flexibility based on real-time current air quality data to ensure that they are letting kids outside as much as possible while also protecting students' health? And it is a sliding scale. So sometimes it might be that it's just those kids with asthma or with some type of respiratory issue, that they're being the ones that are being, you know, maybe slowed down on a particular day, of course, with parents' knowledge and all that type of thing. But really, you nailed it. This program was all about going from a system that used to say, okay, we're going to raise a red flag, which means all day long, tomorrow, you're not going to be able to take the kids outside. And that's just not an accurate representation of the true air quality reality that's going on. So at the end of the day, it's a school's decision. We just give them the best available science to make those decisions and make sure that there's lots of flexibility based on whether it's a 15-minute recess or a 30-minute PE or an hour-long practice or a 2-hour game. We really want to make sure that we have flexibility in there and make sure that it is based on what is in the best interest of the kids. And I will tell you, as one of our governing board members often says, Dr. Pacheco Warner, it is in the best interest of kids to get them outside and running around as much as possible. So that is not lost on us. And that's really kind of how this program came about. Good to see you, Les.
Jamie, thank you very much. You know, we have presentations, and I commend everybody for their presentations, but this was one of the best in the sense of giving us something that we truly can take back to our own communities because it relates to children.
Yeah.
Just as Les has been on a school board, my wife for 16 years now has been on the local high school board in Tulare County, in Tulare Joint Union High School District, and this is something I'm going to take back to her. and others in the Tulare County area. And I think all of us, that's what we're here for, is that type of thing. So thank you very much.
Well, and we appreciate all of those efforts. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to item number 11, update on the agricultural open burning phase out strategy. Jonathan?
Hey, good morning, Chair, members of the committee. I'm John Klassen, Director of Air Quality Science. I'm joined by Todd DeYoung, Director of Grants and Incentives, and we'll give you this update here this morning on the phase out strategy for open ag burning and an update on our grant program that we operate here locally. So just some background here. Many of you are aware of the background on this, but just to touch on this briefly, the San Joaquin Valley is the only region that has these very tough restrictions on ag burning. Other regions of the state do not have this requirement. This is a state requirement put together through SB 705 about 20 years ago. Since 2005, we've been working on this here in the San Joaquin Valley, continually phasing out different types of crops from open burning. And this is done locally through our Rule 4103. And our governing board is continuing to prioritize looking for alternatives to open burning as phase outs continue to occur. We want to come up with different alternatives and practices that can be used to dispose of the woody material. So the most recent big action that our board took, this was in June 2021, when our board here adopted and CARB also approved the final phase out strategy for this, where we're going to finally phase out the remaining crops by January 1st, 2025, which is just a few months away now. This method we came up with helped maximize the reduction of tonnage of material being open burned as this was phased out, but also thinking about the feasibility of different alternatives. We gave the smallest ag operations the most time to adjust to this, so they would be the last ones affected by this. Especially this year, the smallest operations are going to be affected by January 1st of next year. And we also wanted to provide a number of incentive options for growers to take advantage of to help cover the cost of these alternatives. So we're currently in the process of going through this. This started in 2021 and now we're in 2024. So we're a number of years into this and we're continuing to make progress. So looking at the amount of tonnage that has gone through open burning this has been reduced significantly. And I'll show a chart of this in just the next slide. But historically, we've had over 1 million tons of material being open burned annually in the past. In 2021, after our phase out process began, this got reduced to just under 500,000 tons of material. Then in 2022, it was 125,000. 2023 was another record low at 122,000. And this is working well in balance with our incentive program, where a lot more material is going through our incentive program to chip the material and go through different processes. And I'll show that in a second here. And looking at what we've seen so far in the year 2024, this is continuing to decrease compared to 2023 as the phase out process continues. So there's a lot going on with this chart here, but I'll kind of walk you through this. So on the left-hand side, you see the year 2000 on the bottom of the x-axis, and you can see its progression over time to the right-hand side. This is the total number of tons of ag material that's been open burned by year in the San Joaquin Valley with different crop types for the different colors. So you can see in the past, in the early 2000s, we annually had over 1 million tons of material being open burned. And as SB 705 got established and our phase out began, you can see this continuing to decline over time, hitting a low in 2012, 2013, which is when the drought really hit us hard. Biomass facilities started to close, which was an alternative practice for this material. And then you see these numbers increase for a number of years due to those combination of issues. We put a little box there just to the right-hand side of this that showed the year 2019 forward. This is when we launched our alternatives grant program and our phase out strategy came into play. And now you see these numbers decreasing rapidly in the last few years. And you can see that year 2024 there, that's year to date. So you can see that it's roughly less than half of what we saw in 2023. On the very right-hand side of this is the amount of tons of material that's gone through our incentive program, material being chipped and placed on the field or incorporated into the soil. And you can see this ramping up significantly over those same years, helping reduce the amount of open burning happening at the same time. So these two have a nice balance if you look at this closely. And then again, the year 2024 on this chart, this is year to date through just last week. And so we expect the 2024 number to continue to increase as the year goes on. And there are still some crops remaining that are going to be phased out by January 1st, 2025. Like I mentioned, this is for vineyard removals, orchard removals, less than 15 acres in size, and then surface harvested prunings. By January 1st of next year, they'll be completely phased out. And extensive public engagement has been really important for this over the last number of years. And this is in light of a number of challenges that we know the ag industry is facing. Drought conditions in recent years, new water requirements under SGMA has come into play. More ground could be fallowed, more material needs to be pulled out and managed and processed. The loss of the historical alternatives of the biomass plants have occurred in the last number of years, making it more challenging. Changing crop economics, we've seen some record low crop prices in recent times, making it very difficult for the ag industry. And we need to think about these things in light of trying to come up with new alternatives and support those alternatives to give to the ag industry as this phase out continues to come into place. And over the past number of years, we've worked hard to get these updates out to the ag industry, the stakeholders, and regulatory agencies involved in this. We want to make sure that the industry is aware of this. We've hosted a number of meetings to get the information out about this. We've gone to different community meetings or grower association conferences. We've been there to get the word out about how this is happening and the incentive program, how that's available to the stakeholders. We've given information to the ag commissioners, to the farm bureaus throughout the valley. Our compliance department also sends out what's called a compliance assistance bulletin to the internet, to mail outs, to email listservs to get information out to the affected stakeholders about what the requirements are that are forthcoming, what are the alternative practices they could take advantage of, and then of course our incentive program that can show them how they can get a lot of funding to help cover the cost of doing an alternative to open burning. So on that topic, I'll hand it over to Todd to give us some more details about the incentive program.
Thanks, John. So as we've implemented the phase out of ag burning here in the Valley, we've really recognized the need to develop new alternatives to deal with this agricultural waste. So based on that, back in 2018, our governing board authorized the development of the new Ag Burn Alternatives Grant Program. As John mentioned, this program provides financial incentives for growers to chip ag material for soil incorporation, land application, and what we call offsite beneficial reuse, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail in just a moment. This program started as a pilot program, and over the years, the district has invested over $25 million in local funding for this program. And based on the success of the program back in 2021, through significant advocacy at the state level, and again, based on the success of the pilot program, the district received a $178 million grant from CARB to continue funding this program, as well as expand fleet capacity to ensure that there's enough equipment out there to deal with the chipping and the shredding of this agricultural material in lieu of burning it. So at the same time, back in August, the board improved some enhancements, which I'll talk about, to ensure that smaller ag operations throughout the valley have equitable access to this funding. So soon after the board accepted the funds in August of 2021, September 1st, we launched the newly enhanced program with this newly available state funding. Again, there was an additional focus on assisting small growers. The enhanced program has been critical to support the transition to these new alternatives, increasing the availability of this chipping equipment, and assisting in reducing the significant cost of these new alternatives. We have seen over time the cost of these new alternatives have started to come down. Since the inception, we've supported alternative practices across the valley. We've allocated more than $182 million in total funding for the alternatives to these open burning. That represents 258,000 acres of orchard and vineyard removals that have not been burned, and represents more than 6.9 million tons of ag material that has not been burned since the program has started. This has resulted in the reduction over 13,000 tons of NOx, over 25,000 tons of particulate matter, and 21,000 tons of VOCs. So this slide just shows a participation by crop type. As you can see, a majority of the crops that have participated in this program have been almonds. Almond orchard material, followed closely by grapes. They were the second most popular contributor to this program. And then from there, it drops off significantly among the different crop types. And so soil incorporation, as you can see, has been far and away the most popular choice of participants in the program. About 93.5% of all of the projects in tons of material have been reincorporated, and that's where they take this chipped material, reincorporate it into the soil, and then move on from there. Offsite beneficial reuse. There's a couple of examples on the bottom of this slide for different ways that this material is used when it can't be incorporated or for whatever reason it's not incorporated into the soil. It's used for dust suppression. It's used for calf bedding. We've had this material taken off site and used to create artificial decking material. It's used along roadways and highways for dust suppression. So just a wide variety of different uses of that material. And then land application and then air curtain burners make up a much smaller percentage of the overall participation. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the key factors in this program has been making sure that small agricultural operations have equitable access to this funding. Back in December of 2020, our board directed that at least 30% of the funding be initially set aside for agricultural operations less than 500 acres in size. And as you can see, that top table there, about 33% of the grant funding has gone to those farms that are 500 acres or less in size. In August of 2021, to further enhance access to the program and recognize that there are some economies of scale at play in this program that small farmers cannot necessarily always take advantage of. Our board allocated an additional $100 per acre for each one of the funding categories for agricultural operations less than 100 acres in size, so the smallest of the small growers. In February of 2023, our board increased this amount to $400 per acre. And as you can see on this bottom table here, about 27% of the projects have been for those farms that are 100 acres or less in size. So it's been very popular, and we're getting those smaller growers into the program at a high rate. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the key tenets of this program is to ensure that we have enough equipment out there to handle the increased capacity for this program. As part of the $178 million state grant that we received a few years ago, 30 million of that was set aside to purchase new chipping and grinding equipment for the program. Since the launch of the program, we have implemented or funded 55 pieces of new grinding or chipping equipment, and those are all in operation throughout the Valley today. Yes, sir.
Through the chair, just add on, how much of that grant money is left? Is there any left for the new equipment?
That's a great question. There is no money left for new equipment. That entire 30 million had been allocated and is all used up at this point. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So just in terms of some next steps, we're continually evaluating the program. We're keeping our eyes open and we're researching new opportunities for innovative new alternatives. We're continuing to monitor the grant participation program levels, which remains very, very high. It's very steady. And we want to make sure that the program is always responsive to the needs of the Valley Ag community, because without the participation of the ag community, we don't have a program. And then particularly those smaller growers, we're making sure that we're outreaching to those smaller growers, that they have equal access, that there's no artificial barriers that the program presents for those smaller growers, and making sure that they are getting into the program on a high level. We're continuing to engage with the Valley Ag organizations and community-based organizations to partner on outreach efforts, and then make sure that we're seeking those opportunities to provide that outreach, and again, with that focus on those smaller growers. And then we're continuing to advocate for additional state and federal funding to support the transition. We worked hard to get this program included into the Community Air Protection Program guidelines. It's a state program that's typically funded on a yearly basis, although with budget concerns right now, we're not sure how long that funding will be available. But we did work to get that program included into the CAP guidelines. We're also working, we've submitted some applications for some federal funding, the RCPP program. And we hope to hear within the next month or so whether we were successful in getting additional funding through that program. But we're always looking for additional ways to keep funding this program because we understand the critical nature of supporting the transition away from agricultural burning. So with that, we will bring it back to your committee for any questions or comments.
Okay, I'm going to ask some questions real quick.
Sure.
This is a program that's been in effect since 2005. Is that correct? And it's
the grant program was started in 2018.
Okay, but the cutback on ag burning's been 2005. Is that correct? Way before that?
Well, yeah, the Flores bill, which included new prohibitions, took an effect in 2005 that outlined a timeline for the phase out. But there was a caveat with that, and a lot of it was dependent upon having economically feasible alternatives. And so some of those dates that are in that in the California Health and Safety Code got delayed. But this is as part of the overall strategy that was adopted by the state.
So when you say since the inception of the district's ag burn alternative program, and then you've got figures, that's before 2005. So it's been at least 20 years. And is that correct?
Those figures are based on from 2018 to present, since we developed the new incentive program to target those alternatives.
Okay. I guess what struck me is and I'm not saying this isn't a successful program. What I'm saying is that we spent a lot of money to reduce ag burning. And we've got 258,000 acres of ag and orchard and vineyard removals. If we took that money and applied it to action to deal with forests that are catching fire in some fashion or another, that is causing as much, if not more, of the pollution we have in the San Joaquin Valley as a result of that burning, as opposed to ag burning, would we get a better bang for our buck under the circumstances?
Yeah, so this is not the only thing
Can
that
I
we focus on.
At yes, or do you?
No, you need to hear the rest.
Yeah,
okay,
so there's more to it. So in addition to all the advocacy that we're doing at the state level to get funding to support the alternatives to ag burn, we also were advocating for funding for money to go towards prescribed burning and wildfire reduction prevention activities. And the state has continually supported that. The federal government also has been providing funding for that. So there is funding right now available to do a lot of it. And there's been a tremendous amount of work that's ongoing right now. When I was talking about the best practice that I mentioned, one of the things that we do is we regularly meet with our land managers who are both the state through CAL FIRE as well as through the Federal Forest Service to talk about those efforts and what's ongoing, what they're doing. And I don't think there's a time where if they're not fighting fires, they're working on preventing them. So I mean, there's a lot of funding that's going towards that right now. But as you all know, it's not going to be one thing that helps us get an attainment. It's going to take a broader strategy to get there. And so these two things have to work together along with many others.
I guess my point is everything's a balance.
Yeah.
And there's a tremendous cost that's being placed on the farming community to deal with this ag burning. And my only inquiry really is, would we be better off not putting that burden on the ag community and taking that same money and use it for forest management to prevent wildfires that is causing, I mean, I drove up from Tulare this morning. You could just see, there's other factors too, because it's harvest, but you could see what the wildfires are doing in the San Joaquin Valley. And that's significantly greater than what we're dealing with ag burning. So I just throw that out there.
Appreciate the comment there.
Anyone else?
No, you were first.
No, because that may be first.
We'll go with Mr. Tristo then.
Thank you.
Oh, God.
Go ahead.
My question just goes as we go forth into the future when we talk about disease and noxious weeds and tumbleweeds and invasive species. There'll be no restrictions other than the requirements that are in today's rules to inhibit those types of activities, will there?
We are working on an updated report, ag burn report.
Okay.
We are required to provide recommendations, and so we'll keep you updated as we're working through that process. But you know, I don't know if we're ready or prepared to share any of that, but it'll be an open and public process for that.
Oh, I guess we should pay attention.
Well, yeah, as members of the CAC, you will definitely be kept up to date.
Okay, Mr. Cunha. Oh,
I was just going to tail in on that one. Are you working with ag commissioners in that effort?
Yeah, like Ryan said, we are drafting that report now. It's CARB needs to look at it by the end of this year. So we're keeping the ag commissioners, the bureaus updated on what's included in that report to get their feedback. So yes, we'll make sure we continue to do that.
Okay, yes. I just want to make sure that would be done before a public draft came out.
And we also deal closely with the ag commissioners' offices when it relates to disease materials and their participation in the grant program. And options that they have to deal with that disease material. So we do work closely with them on the grant program side as well.
And can we get
Kelly's hitting the table here? So
through the chair. Thank you, sir. Can we get a copy of that too?
The recommendations, yeah, it'll be a publicly made available document.
But you will send it to her.
We'll send it
to everybody.
To everyone.
We can, yes. We will write that down as an action item, and Katrina will be sure to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First thing is smoke management in 1993. Some people weren't born that are probably on the CAC or even at the district. But smoke management was our first attempt with agriculture came to the table with the district, because we used to have 500 permit agencies giving smoke permits, from fire stations, county health departments, police departments, you name it. So we formed that and we have that. And then came along Flores, which caused whatever reasons. So we move fast forward. First, I want to acknowledge Richard Corey and Michael Benjamin from ARB in 2018, 2019, as we started to sit down with the ag industry, with the agriculture commissioners and everybody to talk about this smoke reduction of agriculture burn in the valley. Very impressive numbers. I think we've really have shown that agriculture has done a tremendous job for the amount of money when you look at what was given to keep and to make these farmers go, and the amount of tons of NOx 2.5 and other volatile organic compounds that may come from that. So I think ag deserves a tremendous amount of respect for what they have done as farmers in all sizes. And being that the ag industry, the economy has been in various levels, some of it in the tank. Today, walnuts for the 3 years in a row, 27 cents a pound. It cost us close to 90 cents a pound to produce. So we see a lot more of that production being removed, and farmlands sitting with trees that they're not going to shred or grind because of the cost. And I think there's a lot of uncertainty. What are we going to do with the material? To Mr. Tristo's comment, that has been a great concern of ours since smoke management, but is to make sure that if we're going to put this land and we're going to put chips out it because of Sigma or because of other issues, that we be given the latitude of protection against the Endangered Species Act. So some critter moves in, now that farmer is having it because he was done by some other regulation. So we need to make really clear that there is some type of safeguards. The second part is as you drive on the west side, even to east side now, I've seen more tumbleweeds than I've ever seen in my life. That has been a huge increase. So how do we maintain that issue is a big concern for us. Number 5 or 6, the agriculture commissioners have deeply been involved because of the issues of agriculture burn called disease and even four-legged critters. When the temperature is 112, 115, we have to dispose of these critters. And sometimes the only means is to burn. So the agriculture commissioners have been deeply involved and are being involved. And I appreciate, Ryan, your entire staff working with how to deal with a air curtain burner, how to deal with disease and what that farmer needs to produce to the district with the university consultants to show that this is a real, so nobody questions the farmer's integrity, the chippers or the air curtain burner or the district and everybody. It's all documented pretty damn well, I think. But to say all of this, I do have the greatest concern, and I think this governor removed out of the $550 million in 22-23 budget for wildfires has been reduced to $300 million in this latest budget. So who suffers? These counties, these rural communities, because we have to put money, and this is my comment, not CAC, have to put it involved in some choo-choo train rather than the air issues related to the mountains or the coastal range. So the money that we have spent, the $187 million, and you spend $30 million for equipment, and we still have some farmers, chipper folks, that never had that opportunity because, and you've heard me mention this before, those farmers, chipper guys, did not have grinding equipment. Their whole entire activity in 1993 and before was push, pile, and burn. That's the equipment they had. Then they had rippers and they had land plane. Those little group of people were never able to get into the air curtain burner discussion or even into the grinders. So I know that that's still part of a discussion of where we get some of those funds to help those grinder chipper guys that were always called push, pile, and burn versus that individual that had grinders, old grinders, and they removed and replaced them with the newest. So I think we're not done with ag burn. I think our small farmers are adjusting. The importance for this to survive is going to be the incentives, because the cost of grinding and chipping today is more costly from all standpoints, from the fuel, the labor, the insurance, you name it, okay? But I look forward to sitting down with the staff continually for that report, but also on what we go forward with in our new NAC, on the new 9 microgram of what agriculture burned, because I would like to see a sign or a chart that shows up there that how much ag burn has done a tremendous reduction to improve the air. And the farmers have done a great job at it. And none of the farmers have sued anybody. They have collaborated and worked with the ag commissioners, the air district, and even working with ARB. So I think the yellow chart with the bar graphs, I think is a real compliment to you folks, to Todd, to you, and to Aaron Taringo, especially Ryan's entire group. I'm not excluding you, John, okay? Or even if Emily's here. But the importance is that our farmers have stepped forward. Without the incentives, there would be no way this is possible. And especially now that we're heading into Sigma. What is that going to look like on all parts of this valley floor of trees that don't get grind up or whatever, but the neighbor trees are alive, of what diseases. So we just can't say, well, that's not our problem. We have to address those issues. Included in that is the Air District CDFA in a thing called Healthy Soils. They have money, and I believe we brought that up at the last meeting with EJAG even, or at the Ag Tech meeting, that it's important for us to look at those other funds and those other agencies that our farmers can be a part of. And I want to thank NRCS for opening the door to help us with some of our problems. And you guys, Ryan and Todd and Aaron both have been working with the NRCS people to try to get that 25 million. 25 million doesn't sound a lot, but 25 million here, 15 million there starts to help these farmers. And especially the smaller farmer is going to be the one come January 1 that is really going to be impacted by this. So I just apologize, Mr. Chairman, for the long dissertation. But
okay, we'll go to the people. Thank you. You've educated me from the standpoint of the history on this, so I appreciate that.
Thank you again.
Is there anyone in the north that wishes to make a statement or add a comment or ask a question?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it's Chris Savage. Just to support a lot of what Manuel just said, I think the program has done a good job. It was not something anybody went into with, I think, a smile on their face, but credit to the Air District for how they've administered it. Todd, I've given you credit in the past for how well you've run the grant program. We deal with a lot of them out there. Yours is really second to none in my view. So congrats to you and to John for running what's a pretty difficult program. I don't want to lose sight of one particular point, however. I'm curious if you're getting input from the ag commissioners relative to what they see as the future fallowing of land, and how, if you're getting that feedback from them, which I hope you are. And then secondarily, if we look at the life cycle of the equipment that's been purchased and you look 20 years out, are we going to be in the same situation 20 years from now with adequate amount of equipment available for grinding and chipping? And if not, how do we continue to look at addressing that kind of longer term problem? And by the way, before you answer, I know that's going to be based on funding, looking for the sources, and I get you're looking for that. I think the CAC has a role to support you in that effort as much as we can. So would appreciate your thoughts on what that long-term outlook looks like. Thanks.
Thanks for the questions. To answer your first question, yeah, we've definitely been engaged very closely with the local Farm Bureau offices. And I think there's a general understanding that the problem is going to get worse before it gets better with land fallowing. And so we are kind of looking at developing these new alternatives. We've just recently incorporated into the grant program the opportunity for disease material to participate in the grant program. It wasn't originally part of the grant program. So, and when I say disease material, the ability to use that air curtain burners to address that disease material, understanding that you don't want to incorporate disease material back into the ground and perpetuate that disease. And so we are working on strategies to address those sorts of issues. In terms of equipment, I think there's a general understanding that there is more funding that's necessary, or I should say more equipment is necessary to handle the demand out there. And you said it, we are looking for additional funding. If you forecast out, you know, what our hope was when we started this program was that this program would be kind of a seed, and it would create a new industry, and then it would be a self-sustaining industry moving forward. We've seen that to some extent. We do have opportunities as the life cycle of the current equipment, comes to an end. It could potentially be something that we could look at replacing through our existing agricultural equipment replacement programs. The difference with the funding that was provided through the $178 million grant, that $30 million that was set aside, this didn't require the contractors to turn in a piece of equipment. This was all fleet expansion, right? This was new equipment that we needed to get out there. But as the life cycle of this equipment comes to an end, potentially they'll be able to replace that equipment through the grant program and get additional funding. But again, I think there's a general understanding that more equipment is necessary and more funding is necessary for for that equipment. And again, we're out there kind of beating the bushes looking for additional opportunities to fund those fleet expansion efforts that are really necessary to make this a fully self-sustaining industry.
Yeah, I appreciate that answer, Todd. Thanks a lot. And I'm not looking for a response to this next comment, but just to put it out there, unlike other programs that we engage in at the district, this one has a little bit different feel to it because of its nature. It would be interesting to not just have that retrospective look that you just gave us, which is impressive, but also that prospective look based on what you were hearing, what you were seeing, and how you view the program being impacted by the changes that are going on in the state. Not something we need to do next month, but I'd suggest it be something we do maybe towards middle part of next year, give you time to prepare for it and give us some visibility of what that might look like. So thank you.
Is there anyone else in the north that wishes to ask a question or make a comment? Seeing none, we'll go to the south, to Bakersfield. Hearing none, then thank you very much, gentlemen. I was educated. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Through the chair, if I could. The compliance bulletins that you referenced in your report, is there one going out again in October? Okay.
Yeah, we have a target date mid-October to send that out.
Great.
So we'll be sending it out and then also posting it to our website.
Okay, we'll move to item number 12, Stephanie, the 617 implementation updates.
Hello, good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on how you cut your time. My name is Stephanie Ng, and I'm a program manager in our Community Strategies and Resources Department. Happy to be here today to provide you all an update on AB 617 since our last meeting. We continue to meet with all 4 of our CARB selected community steering committees, or CSCs, to implement AB 617 across the whole valley. Those communities are South Central Fresno, Shafter, Stockton, and Arvin-Lamont. As you heard from Jamie's exciting update, we're ramping up back to school outreach efforts across low-income and disadvantaged communities across really the whole valley, but that does include our 4 Valley AB 617 communities. Our team is actually headed to Arvin and Lamont today, and we'll be there tomorrow as well. We're also ramping up a lot of great outreach for our vegetative barriers program for both of our Kern County communities of Arvin, Lamont, and Shafter. And working, in addition to working with our community steering committee, which, as a reminder, that's made up of residents, businesses, government agencies, different community-based organizations. We've also been working a lot with different organizations in Kern County, such as the Kern County Ag Commissioner, the Kern County Farm Bureau, to do outreach on available grant funding for this program. So we definitely appreciate the partnership there. We're also excited to review some updated proposals for both of our vegetative barriers and urban greening proposals with our Stockton committee this month. So just a lot of really exciting updates that we're looking forward to working with our committees on. And those are all our district updates. Unfortunately, CARB isn't able to join us, but we will be sharing updates via email from Katrina. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, we'll start here. Thank you very much, Stephanie. Is there any comments or questions from here in Fresno? Seeing none, I'll go to Modesto. Anybody in the north? Seeing none, we'll move to Bakersfield in the south. You got off lucky. How about that? Thank you very much. And there is, as you stated, there is no update from CARB. Is that correct?
They'll be sharing their updates via email to you all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to item number 13. Jamie, that is you. Outreach and communications report. Let's see if you could do as well this time as you did last time, okay?
Well, a lot of what we're working on, I mentioned just a little bit earlier with regard to back to school and the the kids' calendar, getting the word out about that. I will tell you, we've been doing quite a bit of outreach with regard to the coffee pot fire. That's the wildfire burning in Tulare County. And we have been getting a few calls about that. It's very much impacting those communities that are kind of our foothill communities of Tulare County, kind of the Three Rivers area. We had a little bit of a break yesterday. That weather change that came through and made Labor Day so nice also pushed a fair amount of that smoke to the east. I will tell you that will not continue through the week. We're going to have that smoke moving back down towards the west, and then of course onto the valley floor, impacting your Porterville, Visalia, Exeter, Woodlake, and then potentially even down into Kern County. So coffee pot fire, watching wildfires, wildfire activity, and then kind of gearing up for the winter. I know it seems like it's a long way off, but it's not. September's here, and with winter, our outreach turns to particulate matter, then making sure that folks understand our wood smoke reduction strategy, which includes both our curtailment levels. Those will kick in November 1st, and then also our grant program, which helps folks swap out their old wood burning device with a newer gas device, or even in some cases just to remove a device, and we'll pay a small amount if they make their fireplace inoperable. So that's what we have going on right now.
Very good. Thank you very much. It can't run off. Is there anybody that has any questions here in Fresno? Seeing none, we'll go to Modesto. Anybody in Modesto? Want to ask any follow-up questions to Jamie? She did say basically the last thing, so I guess you could go back if you really wanted to, but hopefully not. Seeing none, we'll go to Bakersfield. Hearing none from Bakersfield, you're done. Thank you very much. You did a great job. Okay, we'll go to item number 14, CAC member comments or any future agenda items that are requested. We'll start here in Fresno. Anybody?
Sure, through the chair.
Go ahead.
I'd like to thank the district for reserving some parking spots out here for us today. It is greatly appreciated.
Well, it does say board members, which is somewhat confusing, but I assume that meant us. Yeah, okay. Go ahead, Mr. Cunha. And I'm targeting 11:45, Mr. Cunha, for us to get out of here. So
you've done extremely well, Mr. Chairman. You just really
and Ned is really echoing that. So go ahead.
First thing is, I'd like to also this morning was brought up about the discussion of the electric mandate by the governor's staff by 2035 and the governor. There is a lot of concern about the electric truck discussion because of the fires and the potential fires, and how once a fire starts, you really don't have control of it other than putting a lot of fire trucks. I think the Placerville fire was the greatest example. We had fires going on in the hills, and yet we had to deploy something like 30 different fire trucks to keep that truck under control. So I hope that CARB does pay attention to the issues confronting these electrification of these large vehicles. I do know that a group called the Sustainability Coalition has forwarded and is forwarding a letter to the governor from over 200 different individuals, from unions, blue-collar workers, to warehouses, to trucking, agriculture, just a variety of folks, stating the problems they're having with these electrification of these trucks. But also to let the CAC know is that CARB is now attempting to go from the 14,000-pound truck down to the 8,500-pound truck, which refers to a 3/4-ton vehicle. Number two is that CARB is also doing an off-road workshop on a thing called the Tier 5 engine for off-road equipment, not knowing if it's a 0.002 or 0.09 grams, but that is for the off-road equipment. I have great concerns because people were said one time that Tier 4 was going to be the end and the diesel was going to stay where it's at, the most cleanest diesel trucks. Manufacturers are not going to produce a Tier 5 engine only for California. It ain't going to happen. So what happens to our industry called construction, agriculture? We get, the industry gets hammered the worst of all. And yet I think it's very important, Mr. Chairman, that maybe we have one of the sustainability coalition, probably from the shipping world, join us for a presentation before the CAC at its next meeting, maybe, that we can have the people talking from the shipping world, the warehouse world, the crane operators, and the trucking world of what's going on, because it is going to have a huge impact on my industry called agriculture and those of you that are related to it all around. But it is something that has been bothering many of us, and especially the farmers. Even this weekend, I had farmers concerned about that they had heard that the new Tier 5 engine, and I understand the new Tier 5 engine is something like $500,000.
So it's your request to have that as an agenda item at the next meeting?
Do
we have any objection from anybody to add that, and is that possible?
Council, are we okay with such, there she's gone, but Ryan, do you know?
Yeah, we will communicate that to CARB and let them know.
Is there anyone in Modesto that has any objection? None? Anybody in Bakersfield have any objection? I think we have a consensus to add that if it's possible at the next meeting. If that's not possible, the one after that.
Yeah, so specifically on the off-road.
It's on the, well, I think the question would be off-road, but also to have a presentation by the Sustainability Coalition that represents most of the entire state, from the top of the mountain range to the water line and even out. I'm just greatly concerned because of making electrical mandates when we don't even have the infrastructure at all.
Why don't you coordinate after the meeting?
I can coordinate that with you and Ryan and see what works, of what we can have a member from the shipping world come here and actually do a presentation, and then have CARB have a presentation by its off-road. Also, Ryan, added to the off-road is the TRUs, the refrigeration units. I would ask that I want to see when a refrigeration unit is plugged into a truck battery to make the refrigeration unit operate. I was told that you only go now 80 miles versus the 130 miles because you need to plug in the reefer into the truck battery.
Let's do this. Why don't, after the meeting, why don't the two of you get together and you can relay that information to.
That's fine. Thank you.
You'll probably get it more right in line with what you're talking about at that point. Is it, anyone else have any CAC member comments? Seeing none, I'll go to Modesto. Anybody in Modesto have any?
Yeah, through the chair, this is Chris. I have two agenda item requests. One is that the staff come to the next meeting with an update on where they are with the ERC issues. I had made a request a while back. That was kind of a standing item for us. I think it's fallen off the agenda. So if we can add that back on, that would be appreciated. The second request I have is a legislative update from Tom Jordan. If we can get that on the next meeting, that would be appreciated as well for the key bills that the staff was following.
Do we have any objection from, I guess that's no objection. No objection. Okay, anybody in Modesto have an objection to those two requests? Seeing none, anybody in Bakersfield? Seeing none, if you could add those two also. Very good. Anybody else in are you done, Chris?
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Anybody else in Modesto have any comments or requested agenda items? Seeing none, go to Bakersfield. Anybody in Bakersfield have any agenda requests?
I don't have an agenda request, but I do have the support for Manny's thought process. It's, Mr. Cunha's thought process. Very important that we get involved in these coalitions. You know, and with regards to electricity, you know, just real quick, reading through the magazines and newspapers and whatnot, all of a sudden the governor is saying he didn't mean electric vehicles. He meant clean fuel vehicles. So I said, as you're going through this, maybe have Carv explain to us what a clean fuel vehicle is. And it's going to bring up a little bit more information, I'll tell you. And as far as some of the other deals, and I'll bring them up eventually, but there's a lot of things that are going on in the oil industry now that are putting us out of business. And so far, I haven't heard too much from this committee to discuss that. So I'll be making sure that time to time under public comments, I'll probably bring them up as we're struggling to stay in business. And of course, we're one of those, what we consider important contribute to the San Joaquin Valley along with ag, water. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in Bakersfield? Very good. Seeing none, and I take it on item 15, I'm going to request that Mr. Cunha volunteers. Is that correct, Mr. Cunha? Correct?
We will work it out, young man.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, though, as commented Mr. Clark, is it appropriate, and maybe we can have the real quick, and maybe Ryan can set me. I would really like to have a presentation by the standpoint of the oil industry, the fossil fuel industry in this valley, and what they're attempting to do. To Mr. Clark's discussion, I know that the Air Resources Board now is controlling the amount of tankers that come into Long Beach and Oakland half loaded. So I would really like to know if we can have a presentation that is on the regular agenda, not the public part, but have a presentation on our fossil fuel in this valley. And if that would be appropriate.
Similar to what we did on wood burning, yes, or something like that. And
maybe
what we could do, and I assume you would echo that. Is that correct, Mr. Clark?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Maybe what we could do, if you could find, maybe it seems like we're going to have a lot on the next, at the next meeting, but at some time in the not too distant future, we could have that kind of presentation incorporated into what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, so, go ahead, Les.
I said I agree with that. I mean, there's so many hurdles that, you know, that we're faced with right now. And I think the district's got a good handle on some of the things that, you know, we're dealing with from EPA through CARB and the district. And I have people that are going out of business. And it seems like that the oil industry or petroleum industry is, you know, a stepchild, and it's going to be hard driving your truck down there, whether it's electric or diesel, without us being aboard. So thank you.
Yeah, we'll look at that.
Yeah, see if you can get that incorporated into an agenda item with a presentation that will meet the needs of this committee. Very good. With the volunteer efforts of Mr. Cunha, we'll move to, after that item, we'll now move to adjourn. Our next meeting will be October 1st, 2024 at 10 a.m. right here. Very good. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Medeiros. Thank you, city members.
Thank you.
No, probably not. I'll be here.